Vehicular entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
Oh, the boys are back in town. Test Miles on FM News 101. Good Sunday morning to you.
Good morning.
The team's here. Andrew, Brad, and Sean. Good morning, guys.
Hello.
Good morning.
Did we have a good week?
Phenomenal.
I had a great week.
You did?
Yes.
We were in Kentucky this week, weren't we?
We were driving the new Chrysler 200.
It's a pretty interesting car. We're going to talk about that in our fourth segment today. So welcome to the show. Packed show this morning. And I'm going to do something I hope I don't regret. We're going to open the phone lines for the first time ever today, where you get the opportunity to be on the show. 503-417-9595 is the number. Please call into the show if you have car-related questions. Up first in the first segment this morning, talking about the GM recall, the Toyota recall. No recall for Toyota, but Toyota's fine. Let's start off with the GM recall. This is a very difficult situation for General Motors. Obviously fresh out of bankruptcy, and it's hitting the news even more. There are quite a few vehicles involved. The positive side for GM is the fact that most of these vehicles have not been in showrooms for approximately 7 years. So we're talking about a lot older. If you're not familiar with the recall, it includes 1.5 million vehicles, and there is an ignition switch problem. And those vehicles include the Buick Enclave, the GMC Arcadia, the Chevy Traverse, and the Saturn Outlook. What are the others, Brad?
Well, from 2003 to 2007, the Chevy Cobalt, the HHR, Saturn Ion, and Sky, the Pontiac G5, and the Solstice.
So with the car like the HHR, they don't make that anymore, right?
Well, most of these cars are not made, and you talk about the brands. A lot of the brands are gone. Pontiac's gone. Oldsmobile's gone, so those brands don't
Saturn's
exist.
gone.
Saturn's gone.
So what do they do?
Well, they're still responsible.
Ah.
That the unfortunate part is, or the fortunate part for the owners of those cars, you are still responsible as a manufacturer for a number of years, and there are several markers. You're responsible for producing parts for those cars, I think, for up to 20 years. You're responsible for the manufacture of those cars. The difficulty with this story is GM may have known about this situation for quite some time. And so the fallout for them is that they didn't respond quickly enough. However, since the new management has taken over at GM, their new CEO, Mary Barra, she has made a big point of attacking this problem head on. She has a team of people standing by to take phone calls from the public. She has put into action new measures, so safety is one of the most important things at GM. And this is the old GM. We have to talk about that this is like a long-gone GM, pre-bankruptcy GM, and now they are dealing with it head-on. This is not a company that postures. They do things. Talking about one of the problems they had in the past, they did have some fires with the Chevy Volt battery. GM sales during that time for the Chevy Volt went up, because they dealt efficiently with it. And they're dealing efficiently with this now. The question is, did they leave it too long?
Well, they've known about some of this. Well, initially what the problem is, the ignition switches will somehow tell the car that it's not going, so when there is a crash, the airbags don't go off.
Right, so the key was coming out of the ignition switches. I mean, the problem is with the ignition switch, and my understanding is the cars were turning off during mid-driving.
Yeah, no, that was one of the problems. One of the other problems is that the airbags wouldn't deploy. So there are 14 known fatalities that they have caused back to some of these issues.
A difficult time for them because they are being investigated by the state of New York for criminal charges, and I don't think that any decision has been made on that at this point. They're still investigating. Other states could follow. That could be difficult for them. However, the company is not messing around. They are dealing with it.
They are. They've added just 50 employees. But the really interesting number that sounds small, but it's $100 per vehicle, $300 million will fix these problems. So it's just $100 per car.
And people don't realize that recalls are very, very common. It's serious recalls that are not common. So, for instance, I had a Subaru Forester in 2000, and it was recalled for something small. I think it was a cup holder issue. So those sort of things, they bring cars back in to fix little problems that they have, things that they didn't find during testing and engineering, and that happens all the time. It's the serious recalls where life and property are in danger that we hear about in the news all the time. So recalls are very, very common. You can go to any website of a car manufacturer and find the recalls page. What isn't common is the bad recalls like this.
The bad recalls and then the poor handling, which sort of gets you to Toyota then, right?
Right. Well, that does bring us to Toyota. So just finishing off, GM dealing with the problem for some of their brands, and I think very well. What happens in the criminal side will remain to be seen. But this week also, Toyota settled for $1.2 billion, agreed to settle with the federal government in the unnamed acceleration problems with their vehicles.
And that's just a fine. That's for the way in which they handled it. They've already had a $1.2 billion class action suit settled for some of the value of the vehicles and the repairs.
The total cost to them is going to be over $2 billion. However, this is the largest penalty imposed on any automaker ever in history.
Is that just a drop in the bucket to Toyota?
Yeah.
I mean, they got a big.
They have $60 billion in reserve, according to their records.
That's like you being fined $1.50. It's about the same value.
Okay, that's half his salary.
Exactly.
Jeez.
So it's a drop in the bucket to them. I think that the difficulty with Toyota, they're still denying that they have an issue.
And theirs was the unintended acceleration.
Yeah.
Their electronic throttle control system, or ETCS.
And again, they're saying it's still not a big deal. What I find interesting is that Eric Holden, the U.S. attorney, accused Toyota of a cover-up in this situation, and it's a public safety issue.
Ooh.
Now don't get me straight. My favorite car is a Toyota. I think they make great cars. I just don't think they've handled their PR very well on this, and I don't think they've responded to it very well. And people still believe things that maybe have been true about Toyota 15 years ago, maybe not true today.
And stunningly, part of the settlement was for the diminished value on the vehicles as you go forward. Theoretically, these cars that have had some issues are worth less. But most of the studies that have come out recently say that people still value Toyotas highly, and there's no diminished value that they've seen in the resale market yet.
Right, and I think it might hurt them in the resale market. And I think the second-hand car prices may be
as it gets going down the road.
Yeah, I don't think people are going to. Yeah, people are going to be wanting those vehicles affected by it, which is sad. And I think that those people have done a great job at Toyota. It's sad for them because I just feel the company. I think overall their PR has been pretty awful the last 2 years.
I think their PR is horrible. We have some bad issues with the PR, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's at a local level and not necessarily at a national level. At a national level, I just think they could have done a better job. And I know plenty of people that work for Toyota, and I know Toyota dealers. They do an amazing job.
And again, this goes back to, 2005, 2006? I mean,
it's 4 years. 4 years, so 2010.
4 years. Yeah, that's right.
2010 is when, and I think it was made very prominent by people in Silicon Valley who were the first ones to start screaming about the Prius accelerating uncontrollably, and from people from Apple and those type of things were saying there's something wrong.
And they had some floor mat issues too that would stick the throttle. So I think that was Toyota's initial explanation that it was strictly a floor mat problem.
But didn't they just say that it was like the Prius and the hybrid systems at first trying to? It's just the way hybrids are, and people need to get used to how a hybrid drives.
Right. I think they again. Full admission was not upcoming. Our phone lines are open, 503-417-9595. When we come back on Test Miles, we're going to talk about hybrids, gasoline, diesel, electric cars, and the new Ford 1-liter. We're on FM News 101. I'm Nick Miles, and this is Test Miles.
Vehicular entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
FM News 101, Nick Miles and Test Miles, 503-417-9595, and we're talking about 1-liter Ford engine, which has just been released into the United States. There are a number of different engines when you talk about cars. You sort of start off with a gasoline naturally aspirated engine, then you go to a turbo, and then it gets into a hybrid, I think, and maybe a diesel, then a hybrid, and then natural gas in costs of what it costs to put these engines together. So once you start getting into a hybrid engine and you start getting into diesel engines, they cost a premium to get into those vehicles. And so what ends up happening, it's hard to get, you get better fuel economy, but you don't save enough money to pay to get into that car. So let's say between $3,000 and $7,000 to get into a hybrid car versus a regular gasoline car. Will you ever make that $3,000 to $7,000 back in fuel?
You've got to own the car 10 years, drive 15 to 20,000 miles a year to make it pay for itself.
I worked out, I always tell people when they come to me and say, I want to buy a car, I'm looking at a hybrid, I said, do the math. Do the math first. If you're worried about the environment and you want to go to the gas station less, buy this car. But if you want to save money, it's really hard to buy a hybrid and actually pay that $3,000 to $7,000 more and save money. And so what Ford have done is they said they understand that. Let's go with a 1-liter. And a 1-liter engine, which is 3 cylinders. And very interestingly, you know, with a 3-cylinder engine, normally you have to have a balance weight bar in there because 3 cylinders is uneven and the engine shakes a lot. And what Ford have done is they've engineered the parts in this new 3-cylinder 1-liter engine so it doesn't vibrate a lot. They've changed some of the flywheels to be an odd shape and to counterbalance that. So that, I mean, that to me is super interesting. I went down to California. I drove the new 1-liter engine. Some of my colleagues have driven it in Europe last year. They were fairly impressed with it. I couldn't tell I was driving a 1-liter, and it's now the most fuel-efficient non-hybrid gasoline engine in America on highway miles. It used to be the Mitsubishi Mirage got 44 miles a gallon on the highway, and now this gets 45 miles a gallon. 45 miles a gallon.
So this engine's going to be in which Ford vehicles?
It's going to right now. It's only in the Fiesta. It's the SFE, I think it's called, the model. It's only in a manual transmission. I'm sure we'll see. I think if you go to an automatic transmission, it doesn't work as well. But driving this vehicle, I was heartily impressed with it, and saving that extra money on fuel economy. Here's the interesting thing about it. You talk about something like a Bugatti Veyron. That's an 8-liter vehicle. This has more horsepower per liter than a Bugatti Veyron, because each liter, because they're getting so much horsepower out of the liters.
Yeah, but the valet parker at El Gaucho is not going to park it in the same spot.
What? How dare you? I love this car. It's great. It's really the power of choice of Ford. Again, 12 miles a gallon better, they're saying, than the Honda Fit. And they have 125 patents on the EcoBoost engine. And I think they've done well. If we talk about those car companies who have added things in extra to their vehicles to help with fuel economy, EcoBoost is one of the things. What Mazda have done with the Sky Active, they have used a different transmission. They've used a different, and all these things to get better fuel economy without going to a hybrid or to a diesel. And
that's what most of the car manufacturers have done recently. Clearly, it's vehicle weight, too, so we've reduced that with some of the technology. But the really 7, 8, not even 9-speed transmissions are really increasing.
Chrysler have their 9-speed transmission. They've had some initial problems with it, but I think they're doing really well with it now. And we'll be talking to Doug Verily in the last segment from Chrysler about the new 200 today. He has put they've put a 9-speed transmission in that. It's the first car, I think, with a 9-speed transmission in it. They've championed that ZF 9-speed transmission. They did have a lot of software issues back when they put it in the Cherokee, but I think they've solved 99.9% of those. Well, my big question to you guys and to everyone else is, will America tolerate a 1-liter engine? Because we love our V8s, we love power, we love speed, we love instantaneous torque, we love burning past somebody on the freeway. We love those things about our cars as Americans. However, will we tolerate a European 1-liter engine?
No. I think people are getting more into it for just town cars. I mean, Personally, I have a 600 horsepower Vet, and I do like a little town car now because you just don't get fuel economy.
When you say town car, you mean city car?
City car, my bad, yes.
I think of a Lincoln town car.
Yes, you're absolutely right, but I'm thinking of a city car. But people do like just getting a little car. I mean, that's why you see so many Priuses out there now.
And not everybody buying cars is my age, so you're going to have these kids who are 18 to 25 years old who don't care really about cars. They care more about their cell phone. They just need some transportation. Look at all the in-town smart cars and all those things.
Although that's an interesting point you bring up, because I don't that age group, the millennials, the XYs, are buying the souped-up versions of the Fiesta, the ST. The growth in that ST market, the WRX STI from Subaru, those cars are highly popular. And soon we are going to invite some of those younger car nuts into the studio with the Tonkin great-grandchildren who are now sort of the 18 age, Brad Tonkin's kids, or his sons specifically, and his friends, are those XY millennials. And there are still some of them out there who are freakishly in love with cars, and they love everything about cars. And they will be able to educate all of us on what the younger generation is looking for.
Well, they're going to have to educate all their friends, too, because I'm around a lot of these 18 to 21-year-old kids, my son's friends, and they just will drive whatever's available to them.
Right. It's not so much about their performance. So I'm asking, America, are you into the 1 liter? 503-417-9595. I personally like those cars. I grew up with them when I grew up in Europe. I'm happy to drive them, but there's nothing like a Range Rover, nothing like a Jaguar, a V8, V6 supercharged engine, nothing like an Infiniti. Those vehicles, a Mustang, those vehicles I'm still in love with.
I got a chance to drive the Fisker before they went out of business. I don't think my driving it made a difference. But what I missed in that vehicle was the sound and the feel and the power. So there, like you said, there's nothing else like that feeling of when you step on it.
Yeah, Andy, you got someone on the phone?
Oh, maybe he went away. No, we had Andy on the phone. He was calling in to talk about the topics we had at hand.
All right. Well, we managed to get Andy. Andy, we'll try and get back to you and find out what happened to you. The phone number is 503-417-9595. We're talking about 1 liter cars. Is America accepting a 1 liter car? They've actually lightened the Fiesta by 215 pounds. They've made it lighter with this engine, the smaller engine, better fuel economy. And, you know, I always worry about these cars with performance. When you get onto the freeway and you want to overtake somebody, you really have to get the revs extremely high to do that. I don't know if you guys experience that when you've driven smaller engines.
Well, fortunately, the ones we tend to get into, maybe it's the Kia Fortes or the Mazda 3 or something, they come pretty well equipped with a lot of low-end torque. So especially, that's what I love about the diesel cars.
I noticed that
they provide you that.
One of the cars that should have had a lot of low-end torque did not have low-end torque, and that was the FRS. And the Scion FRS, I was hoping that had a little more low-end torque, but it didn't when I drove it.
Yeah, but I think that was just base model. It just came out, and once they put the TRD packages on it, it should have a little more power and torque.
Right. Acceptable for me is those cars. I think when you get down to those smaller engines and you have to rev them up to 6,000, 8,000 revs to get past something in traffic, most Americans sit back and they don't feel comfortable with that.
Well, and I think that's what scares a lot of people with buying little cars. It's just the safe factor of getting hit, wanting to be able to get out of someone's way.
All right. You're listening to FM News 101. I'm Nick Miles. This is Test Miles. We've got more of this great show to come. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Vehicular Entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
FM News 101. And welcome back to Test Miles. I'm Nick Miles. We have a caller on the line. Andy, are you there?
I am.
You had a question for us.
Yes. Well, actually, it's not so much a question as a statement. You were discussing about Ford's new CNG engine, CNG gasoline engine, and I've heard that their F-150 for 2014 will be offered real soon, if not now, that has the factory-installed CNG conversion and has a total mileage range of 750 miles combined with gasoline tank and CNG. Now, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine I grew up with in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where I grew up, retired after 30 years from Oklahoma Natural Gas. And he's quite the natural gas expert. And even though he's a Chevy guy, he's going to buy one of these new 2014 Ford F-150 CNG trucks because Oklahoma has had the smarts to allow, the state of Oklahoma has allowed Oklahoma Natural Gas to install CNG terminals all over the state of Oklahoma, in a lot of the small towns as well as the big cities, mainly for the ranchers and farmers out there, because CNG gas is $1 a gallon.
Right, and one of the things I think that is great about CNG is you can get it down to being so cheap to run a vehicle. They run it in Seattle. A lot of the taxi drivers in Seattle run CNG, and also we'd love to see more CNG in Portland. We have had a Honda Civic CNG in our test fleet at TestMiles, and unfortunately the only place to go fill that up is out at the Honda factory, or the Honda offices out in Gresham, where they have a pump there. Big fans of CNG, and Andy, thanks for your call. We'll make a note to bring more CNG stuff onto the show. I want to talk quickly about what we've been test driving this week. I've actually been driving a number of cars. The Range Rover Sport, which is, there's only 3 cars in that, or 3 SUVs in that particular category. The Range Rover Sport, the Lincoln Navigator, the Cadillac Escalade. I'm very impressed. I have to tell you, it's very hard for me not to be a Range Rover fan because I own a Land Rover product. But they've lightened this by 700 pounds and now does 19 miles a gallon, 1723. However, $73,420 is probably more than a week's salary for me. So it's going to be pretty hard for me to afford one, although I do love it.
So we talk about perception of vehicles. Perception still there on the Range Rovers that their quality and the electronics is bad, or are we back?
And they definitely have the British pedigree. One thing that I do think is that I don't like the shifter on it. They've gone to an electronic shifter, and it's hard to change gears. You really have to hold it for 3 seconds to change gears. And when I reverse out of my driveway and put it into drive, that's always hard. There's a couple of other things, like the window buttons and the seat buttons are reversed. When you go to use the window, you find you're doing the presets on the seat. Those are little things to me, but it's still that high quality on the interior. Also got to drive the Infiniti Q50. This, to me, is an outstanding car. The trouble with the Infiniti is their naming. They went to Qs. So I think the G37 went to the Q50, the Q60, I'm not sure where, the M went to the Q7. And we were just discussing it in the break. We're very confused about how these cars, and if we're confused, you got to bet somebody else in the country is confused. The new Q50 has this drive-by-wire, the adaptive steering, also that lane control system, and predictive forward collision warning, along with a possible hybrid engine as well. Very impressed. The one I drove was the S. It had black on black. And also the Hyundai Sonata. 3 engines in this now, 6 or 7 passengers. Sorry, the Hyundai Santa Fe. Did I say Sonata? Sonata's going to be introduced, by the way, at the New York International Auto Show, the new one. I just got that inside information last week. 3 engines in the new Santa Fe, 6 and 7 passengers. We'll be doing some TV segments on this. Blind spot detection now on all levels, and also that rear parking. Very impressed with Hyundai. I do like the higher-end trim levels on those. What have you guys been driving?
I've been driving a couple Mitsubishis, the Outlander and the Lancer, and they're great vehicles. The Outlander's a great 7-seater.
Okay, from now on, I'm going to ban you from saying great vehicles.
Okay.
So when you talk about vehicles, they just can't be great vehicles.
Okay, well, it's a good...
They're good vehicles.
No, the Outlander is amazing. I mean, if you're looking for a 7-seater family vehicle but don't want a Tahoe or a minivan, it's great.
What word was that?
Okay, I'll get a dollar jar going on here. But it was good off-road. It has all-wheel drive. I took it up in the mountains, and there was no problem with the traction control. It handled like a dream. The Lancer is awesome. It's all-wheel drive. It has a button that you can basically switch into 2-wheel drive, so you get better fuel economy in the city.
But I heard you complaining about the Lancer because it didn't have Bluetooth.
It has an option it has the buttons for Bluetooth and not the option. And I just feel like nowadays every car should have Bluetooth no matter what. I know it's a charge.
Standard equipment Bluetooth.
It should be standard.
It's illegal to use your phone in most states now. You should have Bluetooth in the car. And, I think in Nevada, the law bounces around. But at one point when we were there, it was illegal to operate a phone in any way as the driver. I think they've reversed that since then. But, yeah, I agree with you. Bluetooth in every car.
But that was my one complaint, is because the button's there on the steering wheel, and I'm pushing it and pushing it. It's just, don't put the button there if you're not going to give it to me.
I agree with you.
That's all I ask for.
But when we talked about this, is it comparably priced?
At first I didn't, and then you had me do the price testing, and yeah, it's reasonable. It starts at $17,000 or a little over $17,000.
Brad, what have you been driving?
I have the new 2014 Kia Soul, and I know you guys had this a few weeks ago. It wasn't too long I had the 2013, so I went in and did a little comparisons between the 2013 and 14. And while I like this styling, it's a little fitter, like the little hamsters in their commercials, which, by the way, you look strikingly like.
I am the real Kia hamster,
but
by the way.
I was surprised. So they have a couple of new engines. So it's the 1.64 cylinder along with the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. If you compare 2013, 2014, the performance and the gas mileage, everything is almost virtually the same. So where the differentiation really is in the technology. And the new UVO system, the high def 8-inch screen, along with the integrated Pandora radio and the flex steer.
I think from driving this, Sean and I both drove it in Minneapolis on the launch, and so it's been a bit since we've driven it. But I will tell you, the Kia Soul is probably the car that's come the furthest from generation to generation.
Absolutely. What's interesting to me is I anticipated the Kia Soul being a Scion XB, young kids. We're going to soup it up. We're going to do all that. What I found out is it's maybe a PT Cruiser replacement vehicle.
Really? Because
somebody my age, there's so many, you know.
Sean liked it.
I love the vehicle.
Was it great?
Yes, it was great. It's soft touch leather. There's so much in that car.
We got a break coming up. This is Test Miles and FM News 101. We'll be back with somebody from Chrysler next.
This is Test Miles with automotive expert Nick Miles. Vehicular entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
All right, thanks, guys, for all your phone calls. The phones are just ringing crazy off the hook today. We're not going to get a chance to get all of your phone calls, but please do go to our website, testmiles.com. You can find out more about the show. You can listen to previous episodes, see the morning news segments that we do all over the country for Fox and NBC, sports, and now joined by a very special guest on the line from Chrysler, Doug Verily. Doug, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yes, that's fine.
Excellent. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us on the show. Recently, Sean and I were in Louisville, Kentucky to test drive your new Chrysler 200. Pretty spiffy little car you've turned out.
Yeah, thank you. We think so.
So tell me a little bit about why now, why a new 200, and where it's going to compete in the marketplace.
Well, why now is because it's the right time to redo the car. We think it's going to compete very effectively in the marketplace with the powertrain lineup that we have, the full array of safety features that we have, and, of course, the beautiful exterior and fantastic interior of the car.
Now, you guys have engineered a lot of new stuff in this car, and I know that's one of your specialty areas. Tell me a little bit about this 9-speed transmission. Is this the similar one that we saw in the Cherokee? Is it tuned completely different now?
Yes. Yep, it's the same transmission, and, of course, we benefit from having a little more time, and it is now tuned specifically to the use in our new 200.
And you, I know on the launch that you guys talked about the numbers for this car. It's important. Those numbers are important. So no, we have you've managed to get 35 miles a gallon out of this new 200.
Yes, that is our expected highway fuel economy for the 4-cylinder engine, and we think that's going to make us very competitive.
And on top of that, you managed to launch the car for just over $21,700. I think it was the launch price. Is that right?
Right. Yep. That is the base price for the entry-level car. We think that makes it very affordable.
Now, one of the problems we've always had in this category, so mid-size sedans, Camry, unfortunately, for everybody else in the industry, owned that number one position for quite a few number of years. And now, hopefully, we've been looking for an American challenger to the top three. So I think it's Camry, Accord, and Altima. The three top vehicles, very, very good vehicles in their class, but the closest vehicle that's come to challenging those top three positions has been the Ford Fusion. Now the 200, you think, has a chance of challenging maybe the top four positions in the market?
Yes, Nick, I think we do. We bring of course, the exterior styling to make the car very attractive, make it stand out in the marketplace. We bring interior features that we think are really second to none in terms of customer storage, convenience of the sliding cup holder, for example, the rotary shifter, which is exclusive to us, the fact that we offer an all-wheel drive system that's fully disconnecting. We have best-in-class V6 horsepower at 295 horse. So we have a lot to offer that sets us apart from the competition.
No, I'm talking about that exterior styling. This is one of the cars which I think doesn't photograph as well as it looks up close and personal. When I actually got to the vehicle up close and personal, hugely, actually the first time I saw it was in Detroit when it was unveiled, but really beautiful in the flesh. And you guys have also gone for a whole new color palette as well for the 200.
Yes. The vivid blue, which I think you had a chance to see in Louisville, we think is really fantastic. It's going to catch people's eye. We also have a velvet red, which is an amazing color. Looks very deep and very rich. We also have a white tri-coat, which will be coming out, which gives the customer a chance to have a real tremendous exterior appearance to the car.
And then we spent some time with Klaus, the interior designer, who I feel has been one of the best acquisitions for the Chrysler Group. And he has done an amazing job with his team on that interior. You talked about the sliding cup holders, but we saw the one on display there, which was kind of a tan leather in the Louisville Slugger Stadium in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. And you guys had basically sliced the roof off the car and angled it into some kind of display so you could actually peer into the car. When you look at that, the quality of those materials, was that important to Chrysler, is the interiors? Because we were very, very honest with Chrysler when came out with vehicles in the last 5 or 10 years. The interiors could have done a lot better. And you guys really pulled all the stops out for this, didn't you?
Yes. As we mentioned, and I believe Klaus was able to say there, we didn't miss doing anything on this car. Everything that we set out to do, we were able to do in terms of materials and finishes, all of the soft touch surfaces wherever the customer comes in contact with the car, the choices of finishes around the instrument cluster and on the doors, the fact that we offer a real wood option for people who want that as well. We were able to do everything we set out to do here. We learned the lesson of right material choices, and we've implemented that in this car as well as many other Chrysler cars now. I
think that was one of the things I was most impressed with looking at the car. And you definitely have to, as soon as this arrives in a dealership near you, you have to go sit in it and test it. Because one of the things that Klaus explained to us, and I know Doug will back up, is they use at Chrysler, the engineers and the designers used materials to develop the cabin rather than have materials placed in the cabin. So no longer did they have a thin piece of veneer wood that was put on the dash. The wood makes up the dash. It's a single piece of wood that goes from the door through the dash, and it's just cut at that point where the door needs to open. But the wood becomes the dash. No longer is it just the wood is a piece of veneer. It actually molds it together. And that was kind of a big idea for you guys all the way throughout the car, right, Doug, is making the materials actually make the car rather than just facing something like steel and plastic. You actually made the materials part of the construction of the vehicle.
Right. Again, it's part of making it functional and part of the purpose of the car. These are not appliques that you could take off and still have the car. They're an integral part of the interior, and you can see that when you sit and look across it. It's just such a part of the car. Looking at it, it looks like it holds the cluster and the radio bezel in place.
No, absolutely. I'm very impressed with that part of it. I will tell you that this is the first American car I think can definitely compete with those top three. Doug, tell me, finally, when does this vehicle arrive in dealerships?
We'll be in dealerships in the second quarter of this year, and we're very proud of that.
So look at April, May, hopefully beyond then.
Right. In the second quarter, we'll be available for sale.
Perfect. Doug, thanks for joining us this morning on Test Miles. Always a pleasure to have you guys on. I will tell you a quick little story here. Sean, I've given him a hard time about this, but the odometer was off in the car, and he had to count on his fingers. adding numbers together. So now constantly, every time Sean has to do any math, I asked if they'd let me to hold his cup so he can use both hands to count it off.
We are on East Coast time with no sleep. Come on, give me a little break here.
And no sleep was whose problem?
I guess mine, but...
We're at TestMiles.com is the website. You can always go there and find out more about the show. We'd love to be friends with you on Facebook as well. And we have a Twitter account. You can listen to other shows. You can look at some of the TV segments and just meet the entire team. We love having you along on FM News 101 every week. Join us next week. This has been Test Miles. I'm Nick Miles along with Andrew, Sean, and Brad. Have a great weekend.